Let's go. Today I'm spending 5 nights at Freddy's with this 2023 film. As always, this review is going to be spoiler free, so if you like what you see, feel free to subscribe to this channel. Five Nights at Freddy's is a horror video game series that started back in 2014. Basically, the game is you play a nighttime security guard at Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria, which is a fictional Chuck E. Cheese style family restaurant. The place's namesake is Freddy Fazbear, a large animatronic bear who is innocent enough in the daytime, but comes alive at night with more questionable intent. And over the course of each night, you as the player have to protect yourself against Freddy and his friends using limited power. It started as just a clever little game, but has since spawned many sequels and a lot of lore. And of course, in our cynical times, anything that's remotely successful has to be snatched by Hollywood and turned into a feature film or a TV series. And so that brings us to the movie. The Five Nights at Freddy's movie follows Mike, played by Josh Hutcherson, a down-on-his-luck young man trying to stay afloat while taking care of his little sister. Out of options, Mike takes a job as a security guard at Freddy's, and the rest you already know if you've seen a single trailer for this movie. Seriously, they give everything away in the trailer. And herein lies my first big problem with the movie. We already know exactly how this stupid thing is going to play out, and yet the movie has to belabor the point and pretend like there's any doubt as to the direction it's going. Case in point, there's the scene where Josh Hutcherson is offered the job as the security guard. And of course, he initially declines the offer, and it's like, we already know you're going to accept this offer. If you don't accept, there's no movie. So just accept the damn job and let's move on. And sure, you could argue that it's obligatory for him to reject the call initially, and that the movie would have no intrigue at all if he didn't do that, but that's exactly the point. Everything here is just so obligatory. The movie runs through the necessary beats because it has to, but there's no joy in any of it. It's all stuff we've seen a million times before, just packaged in a Freddy Fazbear suit this time. To be fair, they do try to pull a couple plot twists at the end, but they're far from impressive or even surprising. Maybe if I was invested in these characters, it would matter, but I'm not invested at all. Mike as a main character is not great, but he's honestly probably the best thing about this movie. I will say, he's actually more of an interesting character than I would have expected out of a movie like this. The movie does give him a basic backstory that connects in a silly way to the main plot, and does enough to make him sympathetic, so I guess props for doing something like a third of the way right. But the rest of the characters are pretty uninteresting, and the conflicts they try to insert between Mike and the other characters are always laughable. But while I'm on a semi-complimentary streak, I might as well mention that the filmmakers do a nice job of bringing the world of the game to life. Everything looks very true to source, from the room with the monitors to the design and presentation of the animatronics themselves. If you're a fan of the games, you're most likely going to love how they treat them in this film. But I'm not here as a fan of the game, I'm here for a movie. And unfortunately, the actual movie that they build around all this fan service is not very good. My biggest issue with the movie is that it's just so childish. I guess I should have expected it given the fact that the game is aimed at kids and tweens and the movie is PG-13, but I was no less annoyed when I realized that instead of watching a horror movie, I was going to be watching a childish comedy. There is not a single moment in this movie that is even remotely scary, which would be acceptable if it worked as a funny comedy, but as bad of a horror movie as it is, it's arguably an even worse comedy. The particular brand of family-friendly humor that this movie employs is especially grating to me. There is not a single funny joke in this movie. And before you say that I'm not the target audience, just remember that studios like Pixar are able to make movies that are funny and emotionally resonant for kids as well as adults. So I don't want to hear any excuses. This is just lazy, poor writing. By the end, I was so checked out that I just started doing other stuff. I watched it on Peacock, so I had that luxury. The ending feels especially designed to cater to fans because if you're like me and you're not super steeped in the mythos, it doesn't make much sense. And I don't mean that I don't understand what's going on, because everything in this movie is done at third grade comprehension level. I just mean that the direction they go in will be stupid and unsatisfying to you unless you get something out of seeing plot points from the games on screen. So to wrap things up, this is yet another bad video game adaptation, and who could have guessed? It's a painfully formulaic and childish horror comedy that has nothing to offer if you're over the age of 13. In my opinion, it's a 3 out of 10.